alongside the exhibition, selections from the Four Ecologies project were presenting Lapis Press, and Teresa Lusati Galleries is presenting a limited edition, large scale print of one of my moving rocks pictures. The image dates from the year 2000, and so let me tell you a bit about rocks. uh, the moving rock phenomenon occurs on some remote playas in the arid Intermountain West. I don't remember where I first read about them, but I was working on my Ice Age project, which had to do with also with the intersection of the human and the natural. In this case, a kind of deeper sense of time, geological time. So I was looking at what was interesting about the dry lake beds in the West was that in the late Pleistocene, they were, of course, not wet, and they were at least partially responsible for the survival of human societies in the area. We're talking 10 to 15,000 years before the present, roughly. This is sort of an abridged Reader's Digest version of that history. But in any way, so the dry lake beds were on my radar, and I was reading like not real scientific geology, but like armchair guides to the geology of California or something like that. Just looking for information and clues and so on. And somewhere in there, I read about the moving rocks. And when I read that, I thought the first thing that came to my mind was that would be an amazing video. I didn't understand that, and no one had ever seen them move, and I could have sat out there for 2 years with a video camera waiting for something to happen, So take that, James Benning. Anyway, so the moving rock phenomenon is, the people that are familiar with it seem to have this notion that it's a really unique phenomenon that only occurs on this playa called, known as the Racetrack, which is in Death Valley National Park, not in Death Valley itself, but within the national park boundaries. It's a little remote, kind of a nasty road to get there, but it's a place that's sort of known for them, partly because those rocks have been studied by scientists. The largest one is actually named Hortons. the So before I talk about my understanding of how they move, in the years 1999, I believe it was, yeah, I had a artist residency from the Center for Land Use Interpretation here in Los Angeles, at their remote research station at the former Wendover Air Force Base on the border of Utah and Nevada. And I had keys to some gates, because the land is out on the Bonneville Salt Flats there is still owned by the Air Force. And anyway, I spent some time wandering around on foot on the dry lake bed out there, looking for. Oh, I didn't know what I was going to find, but I did my suite of images called nine bomb craters, comes from that residency. But I also, going out there and looking for bomb craters and spent shell casings and whatnot, I found moving rocks, and that was very delightful. So they, in my experience, they occur in at least two different places, and I'm sure there's probably some more. But my really really basic understanding of how they actually move is that in the winter, if there's any rainfall, or maybe certainly in Bonneville you could possibly have snow, and then the playa takes on, because of the falling temperature at night, they might have this super super thin layer of ice on it that's undisturbed and unbroken, and then with that coupled with high winds pushes these rocks around. And the rocks in general are, say, a male fist size. I mean, Hortons is bigger; it's more like a loaf of bread. A Wonder Bread, not a baguette, and they leave trails, and it's unclear to me how many years it takes for, or rather, how many years that trail that I photographed represents. Could be, I don't know, centuries or 2 years. I have no idea, because again, I mean, I'm sure these guys that go out and measure that stuff, they could answer that question, but I can't. And I think um, I think one of the characteristics of my work as a whole is that up to a point and with certain projects, I can describe the history and of the subject and my motivations for making the pictures. And there's other things I've done where I'm much more satisfied with not knowing. You know, so like say the difference between Westward, the Course of Empire. I could bore you to death about the history of the railroad in the American Canadian West. What followed from that, one of the things that followed from that was desert houses. And when people ask me like, why are they empty, or where are the people who were there, I don't know, and I don't want to. I'm more interested in the mystery of the place than the history, if you will. So going back to this, we talked a bit about the rocks and themselves, but the print that here in this show is it's a limited edition, collaboratively published by Lapis Press and Gallery Luisati, and it's the kind of result of actually a few years of conversations with the people at Lapis and myself, and a few studio visits, and lots of cups of coffee and a couple lunches, uh, I've worked. The specifics. The image is what, roughly 30 by 40, without exactly measurements. It's absolutely a gorgeously made print, beautifully framed. It's an edition of 6, and uh, it's. I mean, it's something that I've worked with printers before for some of my pigment prints. I worked with a printing shop in Vancouver, but I've never worked with a print publisher before, and this is kind of exciting for me because this is something that I used to fantasize about when I was an art student and doing traditional printmaking, like lithography and so on like that. Because I'd read these books about, the Jasper Johns published by Gemini DEL and all that kind of stuff. So that there's just kind of a wish fulfillment here.